From the vast oceans to the great mountains, there is no place on earth that you can't call home. For a significant island that has great mountains and surrounded by large bodies of water, this island is known as Japan. In the early days of mankind, the inhabitants were mostly isolated from the mainland of the world. Only over time did other nations visit this island, introducing new resources and ideas to this island nation. From then on, the inhabitants adopted these ideas and created their own cultures and customs. From then on, they made their own norms and traditions and developed their own holidays, which they celebrate today. Now let's look back beyond 300 BC and how this all started. Starting here, this is the main island of Japan. In 300 BC, most of the inhabitants were gatherers, fishermen, or hunters. Throughout time, other known settlement nations within predate Korea, predate Russia, or predate China would visit this island, introducing resources and ideas. From then on, that influenced the inhabitants of the island, creating a new sociological change and creating smaller nations that grew into larger nations. And from then on, it slowly grew and developed and decayed. Fast forwarding to the 17th century, these are three major cities of Japan: Edo, now known as modern-day Tokyo, Kyoto, and Nagasaki. Japan developed its own sociological hierarchy from one of the second highest social platform, known as the shogun, mainly took charge of the land. And during that time, one shogun initiated a national isolation, closing all borders from the outside world and only allowing limited trade to certain nations, causing most of the action of that trade in the port city of Nagasaki. Only then would those borders were to reopen in the 19th century due to the forceful request of the U.S. After Japan was reopened to the world, they began to have their influence. They began to spread their they began to use their influential ideas and take over territories along that is close along with them, thus including the island territories and coastline territories of Asia. They participated in major world events such as the World Wars, and during the Pacific War, they lost most of their territories after the defeat of the U.S. And after that, they began a great reform and began taking a different viewpoint on what should have been done. After that, they began to rebuild and reblossom on their community and economic development. Now let's understand the norms and cultures of Japan. When you greet someone in Japan, it is customary to begin with a bow. To understand the bow, most bows is a forward-bending motion. Depending on how you bow, light bows would be a casual and informal way as a simple being, but a deep bow is a show of sign of great respect to someone. Most of their foods that Japan eat, they use chopsticks. They use chopsticks to help eat most of their foods. This is a udon soup, which is made of a type of thick noodle, and which is made of a thick noodle. Over here, most of their garments throughout time are known as a kimono. There's two varying sets between males and females, but it's mostly popular with females. What holidays do Japan celebrate? Well, there are three popular holidays that are celebrated in Japan. So they're known as Japanese New Year, Hinami, Hi, Hinami, and Golden Week. As you can see here, this is known as the Meiji Jinjun, a popular Japanese shrine that's usually attended during Japanese New Year. During this known costume on Japanese New Year, people go to shrines and temples to pray for good luck for the rest of the year. As you can see here this is over here. This is the the Miyajima in the prefecture of the Hiroshima. This is during the this is during the Hana. This is during the Hanami, which is the coming of spring. This is when the cherry blossom. This is when the cherry blossom. This is when the cherry blossom petals begin to bloom. Unfortunately, there's not known places to celebrate Golden Week, as it's mostly a collage of multiple holidays that is relatively close together. So in the sense, it's a very long vacation week that's gradually celebrated. And as we move back, Japan is a very interesting island nation that developed due to the influence of the outside world, developed in their own customs and cultures. Japan in itself is very nice to live in and has learned a lot from everything else.